Hi there Booktube, it's Eleanor here and it's time for my Friday reads. I am currently, as I film this, participating in the Anti-Bully Reads Readathon, which Sarah Churchill set up to raise awareness of bullying during Anti-Bullying Week. And so I'm not going to talk about the books that I have read so far for that because I'm going to be doing, I'm doing sort of a vlog of the week, and I'll be updating you on what I've read and more about those books maybe tomorrow or Sunday. I think probably more likely, because I think that's when the readathon properly ends, so I'll probably try and get that up on Sunday night or Monday. So all I'm going to talk about is the books that I've read between sort of Thursday last week and Sunday. So it's just a case of 4 days, because then I started the readathon on Monday, so I hope that makes sense. Anyway, before I start, I want to do my Booktuber Shoutout of the week, and this week it is someone I sort of stumbled across randomly, and she's only been doing Booktube for maybe a couple of months, and her name is Christina Yother. I think she might be a blogger already. I'm not great at following blogs, if I'm honest. I'm much more visual, so I tend to watch a lot more Booktube, which I'm subscribed to thousands. It is ridiculous, but I love every single one of them, and I wish I could shout out everybody. But Christina is a new booktuber that I found recently, and I'm really enjoying what she has to say and the books that she talks about. She talks about a lot of adult fiction, and she talks about a lot of the types of adult fiction that I like to read, and so I find it very interesting listening to her talk. So I will link her channel down below, and her name is Christina Yother. And yeah, go check her out, subscribe if you like her, and let me know. So let's talk about the books that I read over those sort of 4 days before I started the anti-bullying reads. So the first book that I read this week is one of my NetGalley books that I'm trying to get through, and it is The Corridor by A.N. Willis. I didn't know an awful lot about this. I picked it up because the cover looked really good, and also I think the premise sounded really interesting. The basic idea behind this story is that there is an Earth, and on this Earth it's sometime in the future, and on this Earth there is a portal that takes you to a second Earth. Stell, who is our main protagonist, has always grown up with this portal there. It appeared sort of 17 years previous, when second Earthers created it and ended up sort of imploding their planet, so that not many people survived. The people that did survive had sort of enhanced abilities, and the first Earthers are looking to work out how this portal was created, find out more about it, and also looking into the second Earthers and their powers. Stell, early on in this story, discovers that she has some powers that can allow her to create a portal using her hands, and which she can step through and take others through, and it takes her to different Earths, more than just the second Earth. And so she starts exploring that, and she starts finding new people. She starts finding out more about what's going on in her own world and what people are trying to accomplish, and perhaps there's some underhand things going on. And it was just a really, really good fun story. I really enjoyed this way more than I thought I was going to. I gave it 4 stars, and I'm definitely continuing. In fact, I've already downloaded the second book, which I think is called The 13th Earth. Don't quote me on that. It's either 13th Earth or the 13th World, but I think it's the 13th Earth, and I'm really excited to get stuck into that, because it was a really fast-paced, action-packed science fiction story. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it for what it was, and I gave it 4 stars. Next up, I read another one off my NetGalley list, and that was Fire Colour 1 by Jenny Valentine, and this is the front cover for that, which I think is really great. It's really punchy and powerful. I really enjoyed this story. It's quite a quiet story. It's not full of loads of action, but it's about a young girl who is connecting with the father she's never known, and it's about a dysfunctional family. There's art, there's intrigue. It's just a very quiet, character-based story, and I really enjoyed it. I think the main sort of themes of the story are, it's looking at what makes us who we are, and there's themes of family and friendship and what we'll do for the ones that we love. And yeah, it's It's not my usual type of book, because if you watch this channel, you know I tend to like stuff with really like gripping plots and quite fast paced. And this wasn't the same as that, but it was really captivating. I read this in a day. I couldn't put it down. I really enjoyed it. So the story is about Iris. She hasn't seen her father since she was 4. Her mother told her that he wasn't interested in them. She didn't even know who he was. She's finally getting to meet him. She's sort of 16, 17, I believe, but he is dying and doesn't have long to live. So she is finding out about what happened when she was younger, because she doesn't remember. She's finding out more about her parents, her mother and father, and how they met and what happened there. We're also discovering more about Iris's life and her mental health issues. She struggles with arson, and that is a very interesting issue which I've not seen looked at so closely in anything that I've read in YA before, so I really enjoyed that aspect. I gave this one 4 stars, and I definitely recommend it if you're interested in sort of a story about family and dysfunction and mental health problems. Then yeah, definitely pick it up. Next up, I read another Jill Shalvis book. It's gone back to the library, I'm afraid, so I can't show it to you, but it was called It Had to Be You, and it is book 7 in the Lucky Harbour series, which I am eking out slowly because I don't want to run out of them, but I'm thoroughly enjoying. This one follows a young florist called Ali, and she has, at the very beginning of the story, her boyfriend has broken up with her and left her homeless. The property that she's renting belongs to a young cop who rents it out. He's decided to come back for a couple of weeks just to take some time out from his work, and he ends up letting Ali stay, and it's about the relationship that develops between the two of them. And when Ali is accused of stealing quite a lot of money from her ex from his office, then Luke steps in, who is the police officer, and it's just about their relationship and discovering what's really happened. And I really enjoyed this. It was a really, really solid, again, Jill Shalvis. I love these books, and I gave it 4 stars. Next up, I picked up another library book, and that was Skim by Ilka Tamk. I was picking up some library books because some of them have been renewed and had to go back, and this one needs to go back today, so I have finished this one. It's set in Britain in AD 43, I believe. It's when people still sort of lived in tribes and close-knit communities and still believed in a lot of supernatural gods, and in this case what they call the mothers, and they believe that they have a skin, and different sort of families or groups of people belong to different skin, and it's a very important part of who you are. If you don't have a skin, you're an outcast, and our main character is a little bit of an outcast. However, she's been taken in by the cook to sort of the head woman of the village, and so from a young age she's been sheltered by this cook and protected by being part of her sort of group or her household. And it's just about following this story. It's about around the time when the Romans invaded, and it's looking at how they defend themselves, their beliefs, what happens to this girl, and how she can try and help her village. It ended in what I think may allow it to be a series, but I'm not sure. But I did really enjoy it. It was very readable, very interesting, unlike anything I've read before, which I really enjoyed, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. As part of my non-fiction November book for the week, I read Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doty, and I absolutely loved this book. I love Caitlin's YouTube channel. She does a series called Ask a Mortician. She is a mortician, and the series just talks about myths, and in quite a comical, interesting way dispels some of the myths that people believe and tells you a little bit more and makes death a little bit less scary and mystical, I suppose. This is sort of laid out in terms of, it's like a memoir of when Caitlin started working at a crematory, and it just takes you through the things that she's learned and her day-to-day life there, and what sort of made her decide that she would go to mortuary school and the sort of process of getting to where she is today, where she believes in certain types of burial and as I say, dispelling those types of myths. And she's more about a natural type of death where people can mourn at home and bury not in caskets and embalmed. And yeah, it's very, very graphic. So if you're squeamish or you don't like sort of medical things and you don't like hearing about sort of burning up bodies and the insides of people and autopsies and things like that, don't read it, because it is very, very squeamy and graphic. But if that doesn't bother you, it's such an interesting book. Caitlin has a really great way of describing things, and I really enjoyed the stories that she told, and I just found it really interesting. The only thing for me, obviously, that made it less compelling, I suppose, ever so slightly, was because it's based in America. I don't know much about the UK funeral industry, and so it was interesting to find out about the US and what happens in the US, but I would like to now find someone in the UK just like Caitlin to tell me what the differences are. Anyway, I absolutely adored this book and I gave it 5 stars. I can't rate it highly enough, and yeah, I definitely think it's a must read if you can read some graphic stuff. In fact, I promised myself when I picked this up that I would read you the very first sort of page of this book, because just to give you an idea about the writing style. So I think I'll do that, and yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. A girl always remembers the first corpse she shaves. It's the only event in her life more awkward than her first kiss or the loss of her virginity. The hands of time will never move quite so slowly as when you're standing over the dead body of an elderly man with a pink plastic razor in your hand. Under the glare of fluorescent lights, I looked down at poor, motionless Byron for what seemed like a solid 10 minutes. That was his name, or so the toe tag hung around his foot informed me. I wasn't sure if Byron was a he, a person, or an it, a body. But it seemed like I should at least know his name for the most intimate of procedures. Byron was, or had been, a man in his 70s with thick white hair sprouting from his face and head. He was naked except for the sheet I kept wrapped round his lower half to protect, I'm not sure what, post-mortem decency, I suppose? His eyes staring up into the abyss had gone flat like deflated balloons. If a lover's eyes are a clear mountain lake, Byron's were a stagnant pond. His mouth twisted open in a silent scream. Hey, Mike, I called out to my new boss from the body preparation room. So I guess I should use, like, shaving cream, or... Mike walked in, pulled a can of Barbasol from a metal cabinet and told me to watch out for nicks. We can't really do anything if you slice open his face, so be careful, huh? I won't read you any more, but it's just such an easy read, such a fun read, so interesting, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. And then the final couple of books I read, just to sort of take up a bit of time before I started the readathon, I read Nailbiter volumes 2 and 3. This is a graphic novel series that I've really been enjoying. I really like the artwork, but mainly I just love the story of this. It's about a town, a small American town where 16 serial killers have originated from, and it's about some cops who are looking into why and trying to find the reasons where, what happens, what creates these serial killers, why this town has so many, and it's quite gruesome and gory and gritty, but I absolutely love the story so far, and I can't wait to find out when volume 4 is coming out. So I gave both of these 4 stars. So that's my week in reading. I'll be wrapping up with you the end of my anti-bullying reads. That does seem like quite a lot of books. I think people are going to be like, whoa, you read that in 4 days, but Jill Shalvis I can read in a day, and The Smoke Gets in Your Eyes I was reading a little bit before that because I'm reading that alongside my books. And I just had a really good sort of 4 or 5 days reading, so I really enjoyed the books that I read this week, and I'm excited to let you know how I'm getting on with my anti-bully reads, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Bye for now, Booktube.